On this Monday morning, I'm Briana Chavez. We'll get to our top stories in just a moment, but first, really checking in on what's in store for us in the forecast as we continue to hang on tight to some slightly cooler temperatures, but still staying relatively dry out there. Satellite radar really showing us how that activity has managed to taper on down compared to where we were towards the second half of last week. But overall, still going to continue to see a little bit more of that active weather making its push on in, starting off with tonight into tomorrow early morning and even into the afternoon hours. Some significantly cooler weather. So much so we've got that cold weather advisory being issued this evening into your Tuesday afternoon. Before this morning, we've got to worry about the coastal areas really hanging on tight to some rather freezing temperatures, making for that freeze warning to be issued this early morning. It's set to expire by the later half of the morning, but overall we could continue to see a repeat of that heading into the next couple of days. Visibility now turns to be a little bit of a concern for some areas throughout the southern Willamette Valley, managing to see quite the change in that patchy dense fog. Started off at less than a mile throughout Eugene. Now we're starting to let it up just a little bit more, but even then, just make sure you're giving yourself plenty of extra time during that early morning commute. And well, speaking of that morning commute, let's take a look outside with our live shot buddy, showing us what that traffic is looking like. Going from Springfield, and now he's in downtown Eugene, showing us what the roads are looking like through that dash cam on West 6th Avenue, driving west from High Street to the Washington Jefferson Street overpass, which is Highway 105 and 126, and seeing some of those dry roadways out there. But of course, it's still important to just make sure you're giving yourself plenty of extra time during that morning commute. As far as what's coming up on Trip Check, really nothing to be of big concern. Some areas managing to see a little bit of a slower start than others, but really no big car accidents or delays to be reporting, whether you're in areas like Albany and Corvallis, the Eugene, Springfield region, or even down in Douglas County. Everything's looking like we've got a relatively good day in store for us. Great start to this Monday morning, but of course, we're going to continue to check out what those road conditions are looking like throughout the remainder of your morning. Well, former Oregon Congresswoman Lori Chavez will soon begin the Senate confirmation process on Wednesday. She's Trump's nominee for Labor Secretary, and Chavez will go in front of the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions that day. That will start at 7 a.m. our time. And if Chavez nomination is moved out of committee, she will face a full Senate vote. Oregon Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley, both Democrats, have told K2 News, our Portland sister station, they plan to support the Happy Valley Oregon Republican. And Oregon House Representative Val Hoyle announcing during a News Nation interview on Thursday that she will be leaving the Department of Government Efficiency Caucus after receiving flack for joining the caucus in the first place. That came primarily from progressive groups criticizing her by saying it lended legitimacy to the controversial unofficial department. Now, Hoyle saying fundamentally, I don't see how we can do this work when Elon Musk is blowing things up. It's just not possible. So I'm leaving the caucus. Hoyle was one of a few Democratic lawmakers who joined. And while other Democratic leaders continue to have conflicts with Elon Musk, this as members of Congress were denied entry into the Department of Education.
And the baseline responsibility of the Congress is to oversee our federal agencies. Each and every one of us have been in this building and through these doors. But of course, as soon as we get word that Elon Musk and Donald Trump want to shut down the Department of Education, suddenly they don't want to let members of Congress in that ask questions. Musk and the Republicans, they say they're supposedly about saving us money, bringing transparency, seeing where the dollars really go. No, they're the ones that lock the doors and make sure that your elected representatives can't even ask questions.
Congressional delegation tried to enter the building, but someone who said, quote, I have a security responsibility, would not allow them to enter the building. And the deadline to get your real ID is quickly approaching. We're now just 3 months away. Starting May 7th, anyone 18 years and older will be required to show their real ID or an acceptable alternative like a passport or military ID. To make the switch, you can head to the DMV with 2 proofs of address and your social security number. The new ID costs $30 and will arrive in about 3 weeks. Oregon Department of Transportation suggesting getting the new ID sooner rather than later to avoid crowds. And as the federal immigration landscape evolves under the Trump administration, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield has updated the state's online sanctuary toolkit. It breaks down Oregon's sanctuary laws, guidance, and information for communities, public schools, hospitals, and law enforcement. The federal government is threatening to freeze funding to states and cities with sanctuary laws in place. Rayfield's office noted that earlier, a judge in Rhode Island recently extended a temporary restraining order that blocks that threat of halting federal fund distribution. Now, Rayfield told us in part, we will continue to stand up for our cities, counties, and residents. As Attorney General, I will explore every legal avenue available to protect them from this unjust directive. And we spoke with Oregon House Minority Leader Christine Drazen. We asked her to weigh in on the DOJ pausing federal funding for sanctuary cities. She says 70% of Oregonians support sending people who committed crimes back to their home countries.
Some of the most extreme laws on sanctuary states across the nation. And that, unfortunately, is going to put us in a position where we're going to have some of those conversations. I think that we need to ensure that we have safe communities. And that is certainly the direction that the federal administration is moving right now. And the majority of Oregonians are also supportive of that direction.
Drazen also pointed to the fentanyl crisis in Oregon and cartels bringing drugs into Southern Oregon. She says she hopes the federal government will step in to, quote, preserve the safety of our local communities. According to the Drug Enforcement Agency, more than 80% of people convicted of fentanyl trafficking in the U.S. are U.S. citizens who attempt to smuggle fentanyl across legal crossing points, not illegal migration routes. And nearly 5,000 nurses working 8 Providence hospitals in Oregon rejecting a tentative agreement on a new contract. All of them now back to the picket line, extending the largest healthcare worker strike in Oregon history. After nearly a month on strike, some Providence doctors this week agreeing to a new contract, but thousands of nurses rejected a proposal. Christina Giardinelli has more.
We stand united on behalf of the thousands of nurses.
Nurses at 8 Providence hospitals will not be going back to work after rejecting a tentative agreement announced earlier this week.
Providence's latest offers are simply not good enough.
And Tam Piazza, the executive director of Oregon Nurses Association, says bargaining units at the hospitals sent a tentative agreement out for a vote to nurses on Thursday.
With an historic 92% turnout across all 7 bargaining units, ONA members overwhelmingly rejected Providence's offer, with 83% of those voting casting a resounding no.
Kathy Keene, a cardiac nurse at Providence, says one of the biggest sticking points is back pay for the time nurses spent on the job with no contract.
Nurses at Providence St. Vincent, as well as Willamette Falls and Newburgh, have been working without a contract for over a year. That means no raises, no cost of living increases for over a year, despite inflation making everything from groceries to rent more expensive, and no back pay to account for that delay.
Providence was not available for an interview, but says in a written statement that the agreement nurses denied would have offered a 20% pay increase over a 3-year contract and bonuses to make up for back pay. Nurses say it doesn't make up for over a year with no cost of living adjustments. Nurses like Virginia Smith are also upset that Providence changed their health care plan.
Other health systems are also offering much better health insurance in terms of both coverage and cost.
Providence says nurses have the same health care plan that top executives with the hospital group have.
Physicians and nurse practitioners at Providence St. Vincent's just announced their yes vote on the agreement Saturday night. Meanwhile, nurses and physicians at St. Vincent's Women's Clinic accepted the agreement and went back to work on Thursday. Well, the annual Sportsman's Outdoor Recreation Show in Roseburg wrapped up yesterday, showcasing all things outdoors. A wide variety of exhibits, activities, and so much more were on display, including fishing, hunting, camping, biking, hiking, anything you can possibly think of. That is all things outdoors. Organizers, say the show gave people a chance to see resources that would otherwise be hard to find in Douglas County. Well, taking a closer look at what's in store in the forecast, we're tracking out a little bit of activity managing to sneak its way on in as we head into the start of the weekend. We'll take a look coming up after the break.